On the 5th anniversary of our marriage, Ji Chen held a globally streamed wedding with his white moonlight in Switzerland. Looking at the sweet smiles on the screen, I touched my belly and felt unusually calm. 3 days later, he returned home in high spirits. The housekeeper, with a troubled look, said, "Madam watched the live stream, had an abortion that same day, and left. The snowy mountains in Switzerland are beautiful. Even through the screen, you can sense their chilling beauty. Today is our 5th wedding anniversary, and my husband Ji Chen is there to hold a belated wedding for another woman. Because it's a global live stream, the image is so clear that Ji Chen's deep feelings in his eyes are laid bare. He is holding Su Man's hand in front of the priest and swears that the most regrettable thing in this life is that he missed Su Man for 5 years. He even breaks into tears, saying he is willing to spend every remaining year to make it up to her. I sat in the empty villa living room, clutching a prenatal ultrasound report I had just retrieved from the hospital. The doctor said the fetus was already 4 months along, developing well, with a discernible tiny profile. Madam, sir, the housekeeper, old Chen, stood to the side, wanting to speak but stopping himself. His face flushed as he felt ashamed for Ji Chen. He said he went to Switzerland to discuss a multinational merger. Right. My voice was so calm that even I felt unfamiliar. Old Chen bowed his head, not daring to look at me. The live stream, the chat was flooded with comments. Some netizens praised it as a divine love, while a few who knew Ji Chen was married questioned, "Does Mr. Ji not have a wife? What about the daughter of the Shen family, soon?" These discordant voices were suppressed by the PR team Ji Chen had arranged. Ji Chen planted a deep and affectionate kiss on Su Man in front of the camera, and at that moment, I seemed to hear my own heart shatter, as crisp as ice cracking. I touched my still, flat belly, where once rested a hopeful little life. Ji Chen had said that if there were a child, he would bathe him himself, but now, he is busy giving another woman some so-called legitimacy. Even though this legitimacy does not exist legally, he still wants to trample my dignity in front of the whole world. I picked up my phone and dialed Ji Chen's private number. Surprisingly, the call connected. "Hello, Nianhe, what's up? I'm in a meeting right now, very busy." His voice carried annoyance at being disturbed, and in the background, you could faintly hear the bells under the snowy mountains. "Ji Chen, today is our 5-year anniversary," I whispered softly to remind him. He paused for a second, then his tone softened a little, though it carried a condescending air. "I know. I've arranged the blue diamond necklace you've always wanted. It's on its way. Nianhe, be good. Don't throw a tantrum during work." I watched the screen as he was placing a ring on Su Man's finger. "Are you meeting in that Gothic church?" The other end fell into a suffocating silence. After a long while, Ji Chen's voice cooled down, no longer masking his true feelings. "Did you watch the live stream? Nianhe, Man is not well. Her biggest wish in life is to wear a wedding dress once. This is only a ceremony, a mere compensation for her regrets. You are already Mrs. Ji by law. Why bother arguing with a patient about such a hollow honor?" He treated the marriage contract as a security he was giving me, yet regarded the order in my heart as a rightful compensation. "Ji Chen, do you remember I was pregnant?" I asked. "We'll talk about it when I get back. Now isn't the time. Man is about to faint. I have to go be with her." He hung up the phone, brisk and decisive. I stared at the darkened screen and suddenly felt that these 5 years of effort were like a gigantic farce. To help him stabilize the Ji family's empire, I used every connection in the Shen family's network. When he was hospitalized with stomach bleeding, I stayed by his bedside all night, which cost me a years-long chronic headache. In front of the white moonlight's every smile, my 5 years of devotion were no match for a premeditated ceremony. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of warm water. "Old Chen, help me contact Dr. Lin." I folded the ultrasound report and placed it into the paper shredder. Old Chen was stunned. "Madam, Dr. Lin is an obstetrician. Gynecologist. Are you feeling unwell?" Or, a glimmer of hope flashed in his eyes, as if he thought I had decided to save the pregnancy. "Make an AP appointment for surgery, the earliest possible slot, this afternoon." I looked at him calmly. "Madam, this is a 4-month-old child. Induced abortion would cause great harm to the body." Old Chen was anxious, with tears welling up. "When the gentleman returns, let him explain clearly." "He doesn't need to explain. I interrupted him, my eyes as cold and dark as an abyss. This child shouldn't come into this world. He doesn't deserve a father suspected of bigamy, nor a mother who can't even guard her own dignity. I walked into the bedroom and dragged out a huge suitcase. There was no hysteria, no smashing things. I simply arranged the precious jewelry and luxurious gowns Ji Chen had bought for me over the past 5 years, one by one on the bed. Those things that once symbolized his affection for me are now nothing more than severance pay that bought out my youth. I only took the old leather suitcase I carried when I returned to the country, inside which were my diplomas, a few old photos, and the office supplies I bought with my first pot of gold. Suman wants Mrs. Gu's title, and she can have it, though this position will be stained with blood. At 2 in the afternoon, I lay in the cold examination room, and the moment the anesthetic was injected into my blood vessel, an unprecedented sense of relief swept over me. The waves of searing withdrawal felt as if they were prying away the traces of Ji Chen that had grown in my bones and blood over the past 5 years. In the corridor outside the operating theater, the TV was still replaying that prosperous wedding, Ji Chen holding Suman as they spun through a sky of snow, their smiles nothing but a dazzling lie. In the last second before I fell unconscious, I thought, Ji Chen, I hope you can still smile 3 days from now. The shadowless lamp in the operating room hummed before my eyes. When cold instruments pierced my body, I clearly felt that the little life that had quietly taken root in my abdomen was being torn away bit by bit. The pain didn't burst all at once. It was like countless fine needles stabbing into my heart along the blood vessels. But I didn't cry compared to that grand romance in the live stream. What is this pain? When I walked out of the operating room, my face was as pale as paper. Old Chen waited at the door, clutching a thick coat. His eyes were red as he saw me come out. Madam, what's the point of this again? If the master finds out, he won't go mad, he'll just think I ruined his fun. I endured the severe abdominal pain and pushed away Old Chen's outstretched hand, trying to help me. Old Chen, if you still want to stay at the Ji family, don't say a word about today to anyone. Old Chen sighed, lowered his head, and wiped his tears with his sleeve. Back at that villa once called home, the air still carried Ji Chen's favorite lily scent. I walked straight into the study and took the premeditated divorce agreement from the safe. The day Suman returned to the country, I had already written it. I had still clung to a glimmer of fantasy then. 5 years of mutual I support should be enough to withstand that youthful first love. But reality slapped me hard. I signed my name. The handwriting neat yet firm. Absolute divorce. The Shen family isn't short of money. And I, Shen Yan, am not short of the courage to start over. The Ji family's shares, properties, expensive jewelry, I left them all to him and Suman, leaving him only this blood-stained memory. Madam, are you really leaving? Old Chen looked at me as I picked up the old leather trunk, his voice trembling. There will be no madam here after this. I glanced back at the house where I had lived for 5 years, a place filled with carefully chosen soft furnishings and traces of my life. Now an icy ironic mark. I stepped into the walk-in closet, tossed the recently delivered blue diamond necklace onto the floor. The dazzling diamonds rolled a few times on the wooden floor and finally lay coldly in the shadows. Ji Chen, do you think expensive stones can mend all the scars I have? For the next 3 days, I disappeared completely. I changed all my contact methods, moved into a private apartment under the Ji family that very few knew about. The post-surgery weakness left me in bed for 2 days. The sunlight outside was just right, yet I felt only cold. News on my phone showed Ji Chen and Suman embracing in the Swiss snow. Their wedding was called the love of the century by the media. When Ji Chen was in interviews, he was spirited and proud. I have finally found my soul again. Soul? Then what about the wind and rain I walked through? Why have I endured with him for these 5 years? Was I simply a filler for his missing soul? On the evening of the 3rd day, I knew he would be back. Ji Chen places great importance on rituals. After each anniversary, on the 3rd day, he would always take me to that private restaurant we often visited. Even if this time he brought Suman along to cause trouble, with his vanity, he would think that as long as he comes back, mutters a few words, and gives a precious gift, I will forgive him as calmly and gracefully as before. At this moment, in the Ji family villa, when Ji Chen pushed the door open, there was a smile on his face. His hands carried top-tier Swiss chocolates, and in his arms were flowers that Su-man had personally chosen. Nyenha, I'm back. Man picked a gift especially for you. His words suddenly stopped. The living room was terrifyingly quiet. There was neither the warm yellow wall lamp left for him in the past, nor the figure who always sat on the sofa waiting for him. Old Chen, where is Madam? Ji Chen frowned, tossing the flowers onto the foyer cabinet. His tone was impatient. Is she still throwing a tantrum? I've told you that was to soothe the patient's emotions. Why don't you understand? Old Chen stepped out from the shadows. His face was old and full of complexity. He didn't take Ji Chen's coat as usual but handed over a file bag. Sir, Madam has left. Left? Where did she go? Back to the Shen family. Ji Chen sneered and walked toward the liquor cabinet, intending to pour himself a drink. She's always big on threats but short on action. In a couple of days, I'll go fetch her and say I won't mess up again. Old Chen interrupted him, his voice catching with a trace of a choke. This is what Madam left for you. Ji Chen's hand, which had been stopping while pouring wine, trembled suddenly. He narrowed his eyes and opened the file bag. What came into view was a signed divorce agreement. His face immediately turned sour. Divorce? Has she gone crazy? It's just a live stream. Isn't the compensation I gave enough? However, when he turned to the bottom page, there was a surgical note stained with dried blood, dated on the 5th anniversary, the day of their anniversary. Ji Chen's pupils contracted violently, the hand holding the paper uncontrollably shaking. Because of the force, the page crumpled. What is this? His voice was hoarse, as if squeezed from deep in his throat. Old Chen lowered his head and recited slowly, word by word. Madam watched the live stream that day. She didn't cry or make a scene. She just touched her belly and went to the hospital to terminate the pregnancy. She said the Ji family doesn't deserve to have this child. With a clang, Ji Chen's wine glass shattered on the floor, breaking into 100 pieces. Red wine spread across the ground, resembling the blood flowing on the operating table. He seemed to lose his backbone altogether and sank onto the sofa. He stared at the surgical note fixedly. Every word on it felt like a hammer, pounding hard at his heart. He had always believed that Shen Nianhe was a woman who would never leave him. She was steady, tolerant of all his ambitions and occasional absurdities. Even this time, when they went to Switzerland, he naturally felt that as long as he finally returned home, Shen Nianhe would always be waiting where she was. But he had forgotten that even a smooth jade, when shattered, can still cut. Where is she? Where did she go? Ji Chen suddenly went crazy. Jumping up and rushing to the second floor, he kicked open the bedroom door, kicked open the walk-in closet. Empty. Nothing at all. Shen Nianhe's skincare products, clothes, even the coffee mug she used most often all disappeared, except for those expensive jewelry he bought. Everything belonging to Shen Nianhe and him in this home had been erased, cleanly wiped away, leaving not a trace. He stared at the empty room, finally feeling a surge of inexplicable fear. Shen Nianhe, you come out here. He roared at the empty room, but his voice carried a clear sobbing tone. I won't let you go. I won't allow it. The only response was the cold wind sweeping through the hallway and the deathly silence filling the room. Ji Chen sat in the empty bedroom all night. The next morning, Su-man's call came through, her voice sweet and delicate, yet carrying the chill of early spring. Chen, I felt chest tightness last night. When will you come over to keep me company? You promised to take me to that private home-cooked restaurant. Ji Chen stared at the bleeding surgical report on the table, his eyes rimmed with red. For the first time, he found Su-man's voice grating. Once it made he felt pitiably fragile. Now, it was like a fine steel needle, constantly pricking his taut nerves. Su-man, you rest first. I have some things to deal with these 2 days. Ji Chen's voice was as cold as ice. Chen, what's wrong? Is it Sister Shen? Shut up. Ji Chen abruptly hung up the phone and started frantically contacting Shen Nianhe, making calls, sending WeChat messages and emails, even leveraging every business connection. But he forgot that the Shen family's roots in Haicheng were no shallower than the Ji families. If Shen Nianhe and Ruozuan were intent on hiding, his little tricks were not worth a mention. Shen Nianhe and Ruozuan sat on the apartment balcony, watching the constantly flashing Ji Chen on the phone screen. Then they directly took out their SM card and threw it into the trash downstairs. Half a month later, there was a charity banquet in Haicheng. This was Shen Nianhe's first public appearance since returning to China to officially take over the Shen Group's overseas business. She specially chose a bright red backless gown. The post-operative weakness had faded, replaced by the sharpness carved by time. She appeared at the venue and immediately caused a stir. Is that Shen Nianhe? I heard she was so furious with Ji Chen that she hid away. Look at her current state, she doesn't look like a pushover. This aura must mean she's back to reclaim what's hers. Shen Nianhe held the champagne, navigating smoothly among the social elites, until a familiar figure staggered over to her. Ji Chen had thinned considerably. The once-fitting suit, now his face appeared empty, his chin was stubbled, and he exuded a disheveled madness. He fixed his gaze on her face as if confirming whether she was real. Nianhe, he wanted to reach out and grab her wrist, but she elegantly sidestepped. Mr. Ji, please behave yourself in public. Shen Nianhe smiled gracefully, her tone distant as if facing a stranger. Shen Nianhe, you can still smile. Ji Chen roared in a low voice, his eyes bloodshot. That child, how dare you, how? Could you not even greet him before? Ms. Ji, mind your words carefully. I took a sip of champagne, leaned close to his ear and lowered my voice. Before you say any of this, first look behind you. Behind him, Su Man was helping Mrs. Ji onto the arm of a chair, standing there with a pale face. When Su Man saw me, a flash of jealousy crossed her eyes, then she immediately switched to a frightened, delicate little rabbit persona, snuggling up to Mrs. Ji. Shen Nianhe, you've finally come back. Our Chen hasn't slept much these days because he's been looking for you. Mrs. Ji spoke, her tone carrying a lofty scolding. Even when you're throwing a tantrum, you have to know your limits. If you secretly abort the Ji family's child and then spread it around, where will your Shen family's education be? I turned my head, coldly looking at this mother-in-law who had once nitpicked me in every way. Mrs. Ji, I'm afraid you've got one thing wrong. I put down my wine glass, not loud, but enough for the people around to hear. Su Chen and I are already pursuing legal action. As for that child, he is my flesh and blood. The sole premise for his arrival in this world is that there are loving parents. Since General Ji chose to give Miss Su a wedding in front of the whole world, my child naturally has no reason to exist. After all, the child I, Shen Nianhe, have does not need to be anyone's illegitimate child, and even less does it need a person suspected of bigamy to be the father. What are you talking nonsense about? Mrs. Gu's expression changed drastically. Isn't that nonsense? You'll know tomorrow when the news comes. I leaned close to Ji Chen and looked into his incredulous eyes. Ji Chen, the global live broadcast you gave to Su Man has become the most perfect evidence for my suing you for bigamy and for illegally transferring marital assets under the fact of bigamy. That church, that pastor, and the backup of the Swiss civil registry that you personally signed. What do you think I've been doing these past 2 weeks? Crying. Ji Chen's face instantly changed from pale to a deathly grayish blue. You are plotting against me, he asked tremblingly. No, I'm just cutting my losses. I stepped back, restoring that noble, aloof demeanor. President Ji, since you love Miss Su so much, then go to the court and explain your deep feelings there. Oh, by the way, before Miss Su returned to the country, she incurred a massive gambling debt there. I also took the liberty to look into it for you. That money you took from GU Corporation's public funds, right? With these words, there was a hubbub all around. Su Man's frail body trembled violently and nearly toppled over. She screamed and rushed forward. Shen Nianhe, you're slandering me. Chen, don't trust her. She's taking revenge on me. Ji Chen ignored Su Man, simply staring at me with a stunned, belated fear finally surfacing in his eyes. He had finally realized that Shen Nianhe, once as gentle as water behind him, had long been killed by his own hands. The person standing before him was the top-notch manipulator from the Shen family who could flip clouds on the Nasdaq. I offered him the last trace of a smile, then turned toward the brightly lit center of the dance floor. Behind me, Ji Chen's heart-wrenching cries and Su Man's pale excuses. The clamor of the banquet momentarily seemed to be silenced. I walked toward the car of the Shen family in high-heeled steps, the wind rushing with me. Ji Chen wanted to chase after, but was tightly surrounded by reporters who moved with the wind. That global wedding live broadcast, which once made him proud, has now become a boomerang that precisely pierced his throat. Early the next morning, Both the Haicheng financial and entertainment sections exploded the truth behind the GU family CEO's deep affection, bigamy, embezzlement, and a white moonlight's huge gambling debts. I sat in the Shun Group CEO's office, flipping through news on the tablet, and the Shun family's public relations department was not to be trifled with. Every piece of evidence I provided, including Su Man's transaction records at overseas casinos and Gu Chen's covert route of funds diverted from company accounts, have been made public. Mr. Shun, Gu Chen has been waiting downstairs for 3 hours already. Secretary Xiao Lin pushed the door open, his expression somewhat complicated. Let him in. I kept my head lowered, continuing to review the documents in my hand. When Gu Chen pushed the door and entered, he looked aged, as if he had changed. His suit was wrinkled, and the dark circles under his eyes were frightening. He didn't sit down, he walked straight to my desk. His voice was so husky that it was almost inaudible. Nyan he. Do you have to go this far? I put down my pen and calmly raised my head. Gu Chen, when you and Su Man stood under the snow and made vows, did you ever think of leaving me a way out, when you squandered our marital property to fill her bottomless pit? Did you ever think that it was the fruit of our joint efforts? I just want to make it up to her. She did it for me. For you. Back then. I sneered and flicked a thick stack of files from the drawer. Is this what you call for you? Su Man took the 3 million your mother gave and went abroad years ago, not to help your future, but to elope with that gambling ex-boyfriend. She's lived abroad for these years, changing 3 cohabitants, until she finally piled up a large debt with high interest and, with no way out, remembered you, that devoted back-up lover. Gu Chen trembled as he opened those photos and documents. The photos showed Su Man at the casino, spending furiously, a stark contrast to the fragile, frail appearance he faced. Impossible. She told me to my face that life there was hard, that she had been working to support her studies. Gu Chen murmured, his face as pale as death. You may not believe me, but you should trust your CFO, right? I pressed. You embezzled 300 million yuan of startup funds for the North City project to pay off her debts. Now the GU Group's board is in an uproar. Do you think a devoted title can still keep you as CEO? Gu Chen's phone buzzed wildly, but he dared not answer. He kept muttering, Nianhe, I'm sorry. I was really wrong. His legs suddenly buckled, and he half kneeled in front of me, trying to grab my hand. That child. Can we have another one? If you help me through this, I will send Su Man away immediately and never see her again in this life. Seeing him bow so low, there wasn't a shred of satisfaction in me, only a wave of nausea, another one to regenerate. I leaned forward, staring into his eyes, and spoke word by word. Gu Chen, have you forgotten that 4-month-old child? At the moment you live-streamed kissing Su Man, I personally sent away. That blade cut not only his life but all the affection I had for you. He stiffened abruptly, his eyes filled with despair. As for your difficulties, I sat up again, my tone ice cold. Shun Group has officially filed for asset preservation with the court. Half of the 300 million you embezzled is injected by the Shun family. Gu Chen, what I want is not your apology, but for you to leave with nothing. To watch how the GU Group you take pride in collapses because of your stupidity. You want to swallow the GU Group. Gu Chen looked at me in disbelief. That's taking back what belongs to the Shun family. I pressed the internal line, Xiao Lin, send him out. When Gu Chen was taken away by bodyguards, his mouth kept shouting my name frenziedly. He finally understood the taste of having nowhere to appeal and being abandoned by all, and this is only at the beginning. An hour later, Su Man frantically called me. I picked up the phone. Shenyan, you bimbo, you've ruined Ah Cheng. She went hysterical on the other end of the line. Do you think you've won? Ah Cheng loves me. He will never love a cold-blooded woman like you. I listened to her shrill cries and sneered. Swan man, you probably don't know yet, do you? Gu Chen has already pushed all the charges onto you. He said that the 300 million was you luring him to embezzle. The police should be on their way. You'd better think about how to maintain your delicate persona in prison. The line fell into dead silence. I hung up and looked out at the bustling Haicheng beyond the window. For 5 years, I imprisoned myself in the Mrs. Gu cage, thinking that guarding that illusory love would allow me to live a lifetime. Now the cage has shattered, and I realize the air outside is this sweet, Ji Chen and Suman's dream was completely shattered on that rainy day. The day Suman was taken away for investigation, a heavy rain drenched Haicheng. She wore a thin white dress, crying in front of the law enforcement officers, trying to resort to old tricks, trading vulnerability for pity. But this time, what awaited her were cold evidence and the harsh punishment of the law. The board of the GU consortium became Ji Chen's execution ground. I attended as the president of the Shun Group, sitting at the head of the long table, watching Ji Chen be attacked by a group of shareholders who used to be obsequious to him. President Ji embezzled public funds to pay off a lover's gambling debts. This really opens our eyes. The Ji family's face has been dragged through the mud by you. Can't you see how the stock price has fallen? Ji Chen lowered his head, his hands digging into the table. He had once been so proud and aloof, but now he lived like a wharf rat. He looked up at me several times, his gaze filled with humble pleading, hoping I would stand up for him again, as I did in the past 5 years, to shelter him from the wind and rain and quell the chaos. But I merely turned the acquisition agreement with a cold expression. President Ji, as the Ji family's largest creditor, I proposed to dismiss President Ji Chen and to cooperate with the police in investigating the flow of funds. I closed the folder, my cold voice echoing in the silent conference room. As for the Ji family's debt to the Shun family, we will recover all your properties, vehicles, and shares by legal means. Nianhe, do you have to kill him all at once? Ji Chen's voice trembled abnormally. This isn't killing him all at once. This is returning things to their rightful owners. I stood up, looking down at him. When you used Shun family resources to support Suman, when you bartered my dignity for her a smile, you should have foreseen today. After the meeting, Ji Chen stopped me in the hallway. He looked immensely frail, his once tall bearing slumping, as if his spine had been broken. He stood in front of me, eyes red, his voice hoarse enough that no emotion could be discerned. Nianhe, I can give you the equity, I can give you the real estate. I don't want anything. Please, retract the divorce agreement. Okay, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Ji Chen, are you saying this now because you love me, or because you realize you've lost everything? I taunted him. I do love you. I was just blinded by Suman. He desperately tried to take my hand, but my bodyguard behind me blocked him. That 5 years we spent together wasn't a lie. Nianhe, look into my eyes. Do you really feel nothing for me at all? I paused, turning my head to quietly look at the face that had loved me for 5 years. Ji Chen, I once truly loved you enough to ignore all your indifference, loved you enough to exhaust the Sun family's networks for your career. I took a deep breath, and my tone became incredibly calm. But this love, the moment I saw that child detach from me, turned to ashes. Every time you mention 5 years, you're reminding me how stupid I was back then. He slumped his shoulders, tears sliding down the corners of his eyes. In the following 2 weeks, Ji Chen became the joke of Haicheng. Su Man, to reduce her sentence, shook him completely inside, even claiming that Ji Chen willingly guided her to squander money just to satisfy that perverted need for control. This so-called true love once had, in the face of money and prison, torn and bled. Mrs. Ji also came to me a few times. She stood downstairs at the Shun family building, throwing a tantrum and crying, saying that it seems the text is incomplete here. My daughter-in-law said that I'm heartless and cruel, and that I would never be able to have a child in this lifetime. I only replied to her, Mrs. Ji, if you have time to scold me here, you'd better go prepare some fresh clothes for your son. After all, that villa of his is going to be sealed tomorrow, because the evidence was conclusive. Ji Chen's embezzlement charges were basically proven. To make up for the shortfall, he had to sign an asset transfer agreement. The day he signed the agreement was at the old Ji family residence. Once bustling with life, it was now covered in dust. With all the servants gone, only old Chen remained guarding there. Ji Chen sat at the dining table, watching me push the door open. 2 sets of chopsticks and a table of dishes that had already gone cold lay in front of him. Nianhe, today is your birthday. I cooked it myself. He pointed to the dishes, laughing a little maniacally. I remember you liked sweet and sour pork ribs the most. You always complained that I made it too sweet, so today I intentionally put less sugar. I looked at the table of spoiled dishes and felt it was absurd. Ji Chen, sign it. I pushed the document in front of him, his eyes fixed on the text, his hand gripping the pen trembling violently. Once he signs, he will no longer be the aloof general manager GU. He will bear enormous debt and may even face imprisonment. If you sign, can you forgive me? He stared at me intently. If you sign, I can completely forget you. He let out a wretched laugh, closed his eyes, and he signed his name on the paper. In that moment, the long, suppressed gloom in my chest finally dissipated. I took the agreement and left without looking back. Behind me, Ji Chen suddenly let out a suffocated and despairing howl. His cry echoed in the empty old house, like a broken wind chime 3 months later. The late winter in Haicheng carried a perishing chill, and GU Group was officially renamed Shen Leadership. On the day of the listing ceremony, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window on the top floor of the office building, watching the river view that once belonged to GU Chen. Su Man, accused of fraud and instigating embezzlement, was sentenced to 7 years in prison in the first instance. GU Chen, though bailed out with the help of the Shen family's legal affairs, had already fallen into irrecoverable debt and become a complete pauper. I heard that in the end he moved into a basement of only a few dozen square meters. That day I was about to set off for the airport, as the Shen family's European business required my personal presence. Before departure, Laro Chen called. It was his last time mentioning GU Chen before he returned to the countryside to retire. Madam, no, President Shen. Laro Chen's voice sounded weathered. GU Yanxing has gone mad. He sits at the crossroads every day, clutching a photo that's half burned, telling everyone that it is his child. The police have chased him away several times, yet he won't leave. I held the phone tighter, my tone devoid of any emotion. Laro Chen, take care of yourself. Don't tell me anything else. After hanging up, I drove to the cemetery, where my child, whom I couldn't bear to look at, lies buried. I laid down a small bouquet of white gypsophila. Besides GU Chen, this is the only past I want to mourn. Baby, mommy has to go, I whispered to the cold tombstone. Go to a place without lies, and without that person. As I stepped out of the cemetery gates, I paused in front of an extremely destitute figure. It was GU Chen. He wore a tattered old down jacket with a greasy collar, and his hair was tangled like weeds. He crouched on the steps, gripping a crumpled ultrasound result in his hands, something I had thrown into the shredder long ago, only for him to piece it back together piece by piece. When he saw me, his eyes brightened, and a nearly pathological joy made his whole body tremble. Nianhe, you came to see me, right? He staggered forward but was held firmly 2 meters away by a security guard. He lay on the ground, with mud and water smeared on his face, completely unaware, just trembling as he raised the pieced together ultrasound report, as if displaying a precious treasure. Look, Nianhe, the baby is still there. He said he forgave me, said as long as I wait here, he would bring her home. I bowed my head and looked down at him. Once a proud and vigorous company CEO, now he lay like a lump of mud by the roadside. GU Chen, you put this paper together, but a broken heart cannot be mended. I looked straight at the distant horizon, my voice carrying the breadth after thousands of sales. That child has never forgiven you. He left because he saw through your cheap and hypocritical tenderness. He doesn't want a father who betrays the family on an anniversary, and he certainly doesn't want a coward who uses emotions as leverage. No, it's not like that. GU Chen began to frantically pull at his hair, with tears and snot mingling together. I love you, Nianhe. I just made one mistake, just one. One is enough. I turned and walked toward the black Rolls-Royce. Behind me, GU Chen's heart-wrenching pleas rang out. He broke free from the bodyguards, knelt on the ground, kowtowing repeatedly. His forehead hit the hard cement with a dull thud, making a heavy sound. Nianhe, take me with you. I don't want anything else. Only you. I sat in the back seat of the car, and the window slowly rolled down. His voice grew fainter and finally vanished amid the roar of the engine. I did not turn around. The car merged onto the highway, and the withered trees along the road were sprouting tender green new buds. I opened my laptop and began handling the itinerary to Switzerland. This time, the venue for the business negotiations happened to be near the snowy mountains where GU Chen and Su Man held their live stream wedding, but there wasn't the slightest sting in my heart. That snow-capped peak is no longer a witness to betrayal. To me, it's only a coordinate, a landscape, a ruin I personally buried and crossed over. The rest of my life is long, and in my world, there will never be a person named Ji Chen again. At the boarding gate, sunlight poured onto me through the huge glass curtain wall. As I took a deep breath, I felt lighter than ever. The 5-year shackles were finally shattered completely by the end of this winter. The end.